Turns out that turning on your microphone is actually very important when you're starting a webinar. So remember that if you're ever going to be a teacher, try not to forget about it. So hello everybody, welcome to our next webinar. This time is going to be a live review episode number 5. So in this episode, as always, we're going to be talking not about our students' work, but also we're going to be mentioning that. This time we're going to be mostly talking about you and your work, so our viewers. This time we had again a plethora of amazing images supplemented to us, and I must say that well, we've got I try to make sure that I can include everybody in, but unfortunately I'm not going to be able to name all of you because the number is just overwhelming. I've only added those images to our today's episode that I think we're going to be able to talk about, but also those that I think are quite beautiful. Regardless if your name is going to be mentioned or not, it doesn't mean that your image wasn't really good enough. It just means that we were overwhelmed, and to pack everything in one episode is just impossible. So I really appreciate the support. So for those of you that just joined in, my name is Mike and I'm a teacher for VizAcademy. VizAcademy is an online school that will teach you how to create beautiful visualizations in less than 7 weeks. You can also check out our Instagram, that's VizAcademy UK, and you're going to be able to see all of the beautiful images that our students create. We do not upload our tutors' work because I honestly think that it would be a little bit disingenuous to show you guys my work or work of any of our teachers, because again, it's not about us but about the students and their record. It's you're only going to be a good school if your students actually achieve something. So we try to point towards them. That is also why if you want to sign up to our training, you can go to VizAcademy UK, see the available dates. Right now we're recruiting for the 15th of July. Yep, it would appear that we do. Then you can kind of apply then. So obviously this is best to grab your seat right now before they run out, but we absolutely still have time. Not a lot, but still. Okay, so today we're going to be going through the images that you've sent us. I see that our beautiful audience is already here. Hello everyone, looking forward to seeing everyone's awesome renders. Me too. And again, I had to vet through them. By the way, I just want to do a quick survey with you guys. So in the chat, type in plus or a minus or some kind of profanities. Don't do that. If you would like me to create a webinar on this project that I was creating for a client of mine. So this is just a bar in a club where we've had the possibly hardest situation and hardest possible thing to render was this element. I mean, not because it's some kind of fancy and weird, but it's refractive glass with caustics in it inside of a fog, dimly lit by a red light inside, and there's metal behind it. So that part was extremely hard to render. There's also my face in it. As I mentioned last time, I'd like to put my small 3D model that I've created of my face some time ago to just make sure that if anybody online is going to steal my work, I can just point, hey dude, that's my face that you're posting. And obviously number 4, so we can go through the process of creating it, how I handled the client, what were the quotes, how all the details were created, how all the details were added, what was a surprise to me with it, and just a webinar, possibly 1 or 2 episodes, plus. Okay, so that makes sense. I guess we're going to be talking about that at some point. So before we really begin, I would like to point out that those are the images that we're not going to be possibly mentioning, because not because I don't want to, because some of those images are just amazing. And I honestly think that this one is so good that I am absolutely ashamed that I didn't have enough time to really make time to show it, because name and answer questions, because honestly, this is beautiful. This looks like a photo. So today we're going to be starting with images that I was able to sort through, and we're going to be starting with Ian. So guys, remember that my opinion is subjective, and that doesn't mean that your work is wrong, bad, or it's in any kind of way suboptimal. But I'm going to try to give you my best advice on what to change, what to improve in order to make sure that we can make your work a little bit better in the future. I see that there's a lot of you guys already in our chat, so I see a lot of amazing people. We've got Mohammed, Alicia, we've got Shao, Regine, Tenebis, we've got Dren. I hope that I'm going to get to your image. Also, we've got Archlife. This time I got your image, so we're going to be talking about that one as well. I saw my image in there, and so excited I am waiting. So let's just go through it. And by the way, guys, I can already see that some of you are still sending images. I'm really not going to be able to highlight them, but if we have enough time, we will. So today we're going to be starting with Ian, because you can see that this is quite a funny scenario that I would like you all to consider as a guideline for your future projects. This was a fun noodle shop that I found and wanted to showcase. As always, feel free to give any feedback for how to continue and improve. So first of all, hi Mikasa, hi. So first of all, what we're going to be talking about is obviously the project and its strong and bad sides. So the strongest and best thing you can ever do with your images is obviously practice. And I love the fact that this was just an image that you found and you felt that it looks good, so I'm going to make it. And that's a huge plus on its own, because you're practicing, you're exploring new grounds, and that is just amazing. But to really judge it, we're going to have to zoom in, because there are elements that I like about this image, but there's also a few that I'm going to point out that we could make them better. Can I send my render now? It's too late to send any. Keep up with Steph. So Steph, I doubt that we're going to be able to get to extra images. I might be able to just zoom through them, but if you feel like you really need that, we might actually try to consider it. So first thing that struck me here is that you are overdoing, Ian, you're overdoing the blacks. So whenever you set up any black color in your in 3ds Max, you potentially want to avoid one thing. Zero black, whenever dealt with in 3ds Max when rendered, you're going to see that this object is going to be just Venta black, and in real life we don't necessarily see this very often. So that is why the Venta black color, when it first came out, was such an amazing thing. It was actually something that people were surprised with, because it was actually a black object, and most of the objects in your scene are acting just like Venta black. So whenever you will be dealing with some kind of objects in your scene and adding some kind of materials to them, my advice to you, especially if those objects are going to have some sort of interesting, let's say, shape and size, make sure to avoid one crucial mistake. Do not set them to Venta black and just try to lower the reflection, because at that point we're going to have those black voids. We see no detail at all. Possibly, chances are that we're going to be able to salvage some of the detail thanks to the reflection, but it's very dimmed and it's almost impossible to see. That is why my advice for you would be to, for normal circumstances, try to set up the lowest black you can go for, 25, but typically try to oscillate around 35. This way, whenever you're going to be dealing with black objects, one thing is going to be now available to you, adding more contrast to your shot without losing the detail in itself, because you're always going to be adding extra contrast. You're always going to be balancing the darker and brighter areas. Just as we try to avoid adding the super white color to our objects, just like that, because then we basically don't have any RGB space for our reflections. We also try to avoid super dense black colors. Yes, the roughness is going to still help us a little bit in both cases, but it is a better idea to leave a little bit of space for the detail to actually show, because two extremes, the maximum black and maximum white, are wrong, or at least this is considered a mistake, especially in photography. So areas that we see here that have no detail, just black holes in your image, also here, also the chair, those elements are just would be considered a mistake, and people wouldn't be necessarily keen on printing an image like that. Not only it would use a lot of ink, because black is for some reason very important when dealing with larger prints. Often it's also a little bit more expensive, depending on the type of paper. And next thing that I would like you to consider is balancing out the amount of light that you're producing from your lamps. We've got beautiful daylight, and you cannot really see that inside of the shot because you're overwhelming it with the light that's inside. So the lamps wouldn't be possibly even able to compete against the sun. Although it's not directly shining inside of this building, you can see the light's glimpses in here. So you know that no lamp, no light bulb can be stronger than the sun. I mean, possibly in your house you may have that, but I don't. Next thing that I love about your image is attention to detail. You've added a small wobble on your tiles, which is absolutely amazing. And again, this just helps us fool our viewer a little bit better. And this is something that I must say that you just need to do more of. We've got also the detailed shot, or a close-up. Again, beautiful shot, and the darks are a little bit better here because we can actually see some gradients, but we kind of get lost in this area because that's just black and there's no detail, nothing interesting to guide our eyes. I love the reflections, those are fantastic. The bokeh effect is just beautiful. I'm going to only say one thing about the possible absorption. You must add it for your shot. The twigs and details, perfect. And honestly, I also love the fact that you've added the white render like this, because it kind of gives us the better understanding why we don't see any detail on the ceiling, because there's just none. And again, it's not the biggest problem because typically buildings are buildings, but if you would add just a little bit of bump on the ceiling or displacement, and then allow some sort of light to just create a gradient around here, it wouldn't be really too strong. You can see that there is some, but it's too subtle, and we're essentially getting to a point where those are black voids. So again, beautiful work and congratulations. I hope that a next image that you produce is going to be free of those small mistakes. And now let's go to another image. Okay, that was wrongly named, so oh my god, I lost one name. I'm going to go back to this image later. Now we're going to be talking about Lyrine's image. That makes sense. Shot was super challenging as the image was super contrasting and dark. Thanks for the ideas. That was you? Oh my god! My God, that's amazing. I didn't know that this was you, Ian. Okay, that's even better. Now I know that I wasn't biased towards you. Okay, that gave me the idea that, hey, maybe that's somebody from our training. But honestly, you fooled me. I mean, I should have remembered your name a little bit better, but I remembered the Tenabis because of the webinars. So definitely amazing work, and I'm glad that I basically went in for this shot as first because I thought that it's super interesting to talk about. So everything checks out. Okay, so let's continue. So Lyria, I hope that I'm pronouncing your name properly, and if I do not, I can't apologize because you guys have quite interesting names that I'm going to try to learn better. Okay, so first thing that first thing that I would like to improve about this image is going to be said just right after we read the question. In what way could I improve my materials and camera angle and overall render? So camera angle is perfect. I would like you guys to think about your images and your quality in terms of who does it better. And I like to think about images that my students produce and let's say the whole world is enjoying, is to compare your work versus the IKEA. You might not know it, but 90% of images that are now in IKEA catalog are created by V-Ray or Corona. Mostly by Corona at the moment, but it shifts each year. And if we look at those images that are actually used by one of the biggest manufacturers of furniture in the world, you absolutely hello 3D. Okay, 1 second. So the question, hi everyone, hi Shivan. So where's the question? Hi from Lalita. Okay, I'm waiting for your message. You're waiting for my message? Where exactly? Hello from please reply. Okay, did you ask a question here or I hate Corona, check, I love V-Ray. Both are fantastic, and remember that Corona was created to combat V-Ray at first. So you can see that those images are, let's say, industry standard, because who else is this standard other than IKEA? So let's compare this image, IKEA image, to yours. In terms of, let's say, quality, I don't think your image is that far off. So in that case, we're going to have to look for elements that stand out or could be improved. One thing that I don't like is the light in here. I mean, maybe that's something that we can will actually see in the original model, but I wouldn't be going for that. Always make sure that glass has some kind of small distortion. That is why I was so happy about work of our former student that I didn't know of, because we've got a little bit of wobble, a little bit of imperfection, even on a tile. That allows us to really see that this is more realistic, because nothing in real world is going to be fully perfect. This plant, perfect, why not? The tiles, everything else, just beautiful, so nothing to talk about here. I like the fact that those objects are paired. What I don't like, or what I think you could improve, is the textures, and the fact that this texture is not a seamless texture. You can clearly see that the texture repeats here, then it repeats there, and then we're going to be able to possibly just continue with the repetition. The next step is another source of repetition. So we can see that here and here, your chair, although does have a slightly different tint and maybe even gamma, it doesn't appear to have randomized texture. So I do recommend you to test out just regular Corona randomization map, because that's going to slightly improve your shot. Details on the curtains are fantastic, and I love the fact that you went for it. But if you're going to be trying to go for a full realism, add a little bit of thickness to your curtains, and possibly make sure that the bottom is going to be slightly thicker than the rest of your curtain. Possibly also change the grain on your fabric, because that element is not going to be that easy to unsee. Mapping is definitely not your strongest side, because you can see that the mapping goes sideways, left to right in here, while it should be going to along this plank. Maybe, let's say that it shouldn't, but then again, why it doesn't go here? So there's a lot of those small details that I don't really think are causing your render to look bad, because it looks good. But if you want to improve your work, you potentially want to just one up those details. Also, I recommend you to check out a few images of detail around the skirts and sideboards, because when you see it, you're always going to see there's always this kind of small shadow forming in those areas. Also, speaking of shadows and speaking of textures, again, we've got repetition on our floor, and for some reason your planks are let's say translating from one plank to another. This should be randomized, because if you're going to be using floor generator or some other textures, you definitely want them to feel more realistic by randomizing their position per plank. So other than that, this would be honestly just professional quality. There's nothing to take away, nothing to give. This is just a very good looking image, very nicely positioned, everything. Possibly go easier on the amount of light that this lamp produces. I know that you wanted to make a statement with it, but I think it's a little bit too strong, because you can see that here the brightest reflection is still brighter than the lamp, but it's a little bit overwhelming. So I would go easier on that. But rest is just fantastic. So congratulations, I love it. So this is what I would suggest to improve your render. And now we're going to be going to Alicia's folder. So Alicia, let's see. I think I saw you in our audience. So I hope that I didn't misspell that. So there are a couple of things that we can pretty much take from my previous review to this image, because both are going to look, both are in a similar class. They're very professionally made, and I like the fact how the quality just pours out of those images. First of all, I love this zebra tiles. Those are just amazing. It's a cool statement. It's a nice texture. But what I would do here is I would try to add the same type of reflection and a bit of noise to those as well, to make sure that we're going to see them better. We do have a few glitches with our textures that are just mispositioned. Possibly your randomization was actually a little bit excessive, and maybe you didn't have full control over it. This often happens because when randomizing your textures, you're not going to be able to see it in viewport, and in the interactive render, such elements are just very hard to spot, especially on patterns, because when we look at it from afar, it's not that obvious that there's a problem. But the elements that really stand out in your shot and you should improve would be the tiles. We don't have any ground around it, so that's the first thing. The tiles on their own are a little bit too, let's say, adventurous. We do have a bit too much noise on those tiles, so you want to go not lower on the bump amount, but less noisy or less distorted tile would actually make more sense. It still should be there, but it should be a little bit less excessive, because you kind of went overboard. Also, reducing bump might be a good idea, randomizing the bump, because you can see that the tiles are looking good, but I kind of feel like I see very similar patterns in reflections from time to time. Possibly this is already randomized because in the end this is noise and we cannot tell because of actual addition of the distortion. So that's cool. I love the fact that all of those tiles pretty much have unique looks to it, but then again, it's just about the small details. It's just a little bit too wobbly, a little bit too distorted. Also, I recommend you to look at some of the references for objects like this. They never end with just nothing. You have to add some kind of better shadow around here, some limitations, and you want to add some distortions there on the ceiling. Next thing that I would like to point out in your image is the floor. You've made your floor based on displacement, and again, it's not going to be a big mistake, but what I would consider a mistake is that we've got very nasty looking elements in here. I mean, come on, it's just the lines that look a little bit well, jagged. It's not bad, but people pay money to avoid any kind of cracks like this. Imagine that this is your house and you're going to be vacuuming this area or cleaning the floor. This would be impossible. Those areas are just too big. What I love is this detail here, a little bit of distance between the floor and the object on the floor. It always forms, so it's exactly what I would like to see here as well, because there should be that small detail, that extra shadow is just beautiful, and that's a huge plus. I'm assuming that this is just a nice coinky-dinky, but if it was intentional, really good job. Love the textures, love the setup, it's amazing. So congratulations. Definitely the floor is the biggest problem. Then it's the tiles. As for your whole model, there's possibly still some space for small adjustments, especially in your walls. My suggestion for you, if this is a recurring theme in your shots, this kind of problem, once you create your floor, you want to always try to make sure that whatever walls you're going to be creating, make sure that they go a little bit lower than you originally had planned. So what I mean is that if the top, if the ceiling is going to be at, let's say, 250, right? It's still going to be at 250, but now thanks to the fact that it's going through the floor, no light is going to be able to shine through because, well, it's blocked. So it's just going to be impossible to destroy your shot. But because you opt for displacement or other weird other means for your floor, we do have that small those small light leaks, and I'm assuming that there might be no thickness to your walls. It's not a mistake in most of the cases, but it is going to also trigger some very bad, let's say, lighting glitches, because your light is going to be going through the crevices and it's going to be bouncing somewhere around here, and it's going to just create those splashes because the denoising is going to take over and it's going to just make it a little bit too, let's say, random looking. Very nice windows, I love those, and again we have that extra light splotch just poking through. I like the materials that you've created, that's actually quite cool, but I would go easier on the sheen value because we don't need that white element to be as overwhelming. I know that you were going for this type of velour type of material, but I don't think it's going to be necessary to add such dramatic values. You want all of that, but simpler. Then it's about some sort of randomization in here that's going to be additional element. The beautiful lamps, I love those, so 10 out of 10 on that front. And again, the front of your kitchen is looking good, but you can see some sort of random, let's say, repetition in some positions. Not the biggest mistake, not the biggest problem, because it can happen in real life. But since we've got such a beautiful wooden pattern in here, you should allow more patterns to be formed on the walls, on your badly textured or let's say mapped doors, and all of that, it just will add up in order to make your shot better. Love the lighting, love the color scheme, love the textures, all of that is amazing. The mapping is the biggest problem. Some small details are, let's say, omitted here and there, but it's good, it's good. So Alicia, congratulations, and I see that you, for me, it looks like you might be, let's say, 2 years in the industry. So great job, great job. Now, this image is quite catch again, because we now are diving into more of an exterior territory. So let's talk about Hugh Liu's image. I hope that, no, it's impossible for me to read your name, because if somebody could tell me how to read those extra letters above, or symbols above the U, I would really be well, very happy about it. Hello, what do you think about the use light rectangles in the ceiling to bring more light in a scene? Looks like using just the real physical light light ones who comes from the windows are not enough. William, thank you for the question. So that's actually a good question, and you know what, then we're going to switch the order, because here I've got an image that Michal Mateja has sent. So here we've got a great example of usage of extra lights all over the place. Not only you can barely see any light coming from those lamps, and I doubt that those lamps are creating as much mood that we see here. So is it allowed? Is it okay? Hugh Liu. So I hope that I am not mispronouncing it, but if I do, I'm so sorry. So I'm going to just copy that. Because you seemingly know what you're saying. So now we've got an update. Let's see. Okay, so once again, this image has a lot of lights that are all over the place, but it creates the mood, and that is why it's good. We can assume that this lamp is somewhere around here, right? So it would be creating the lighting here, but then we got this lamp and it shines there. But there's more light in this area, in all of this image, where we see all of these small appliances and all of the details really correctly. I love the fact that even the button to splash the water has a small rounded edges. We can clearly see just a hint, a dash of chromatic aberration, which is a really good idea to add for at such a small scale. Then we've got the extra detail, and everything is clearly highlighted thanks to the fake lights. I mean, you typically don't even want to show a toilet in your shot, but this one doesn't bother me. Why? Because it's nicely highlighted, it has this beautiful rim, and all of that is, again, would you expect a light to be somewhere here? I mean, a lamp? No, but it really adds a lot to your shot. This is what photographers do for the studio shots. They do a lot of fakes. They add multiple lights behind the scenes that you don't see. So just the physical light is not enough, but at that point you have to activate a bit of creativity to really get the result you are after. And the only mistake I spotted here is this small issue. I guess nobody likes to cover their walls too much, but again, this is a nice image, very high quality, so this is something that I'm really happy. I'm really happy about that question, so thank you for it, because it helps. So now let's go to Hugh Liu's folder, or let's say image. So first thing that really, I was just asking because sometimes I feel a bit guilty for using light that is not real and using only the sun coming from the window, etc. is it not enough to make it look brighter? Thanks so much. Yes, also one reason why you would be doing that, and this is a huge perfect example. Imagine that we don't have this extra window here, right? If we would close this gap, a lot less light would be inside of the shot. If we would like to get the same amount of exposure, not only this lamp would be overexposed, but also this whole window would be almost white because of that. So is it okay to add extra lights inside of our scene? Yes, but be subtle about it. Don't make it too obvious, because sometimes it's good to just fake some light. And I'm not saying that this is a fake light, but now when we are on the topic, I think that we might have Lyra might have added another light somewhere on the left just to create that reflection, which is actually smart. So again, don't feel guilty. It's what people do. I also felt guilty about it, but then I studied the ropes. I studied the blade. When you were parting, I was studying the renders, and now you come back to me, right? So you know that samurai meme probably that is a little bit cringy, but I love the cringe. So anyway, when I was looking through the books, looking through the how was it made, always people try to hide extra lights. You wouldn't be even surprised to see that if this would be a photo shoot, we would have another lamp right behind that corner to create a nicer gradient around here, and nobody would be bothered with that because the sun would be just let's say justifying the amount of light that we had here and there. If we would be photographers, we would also be adding some kind of beaming light from the left or right to make this better. So it's always okay. It's always okay, but be subtle about it. Don't make it obvious. And your priority is the aesthetics, not photorealism. I mean, aesthetics, photorealism is the aesthetics we're going for, but in this case, you kind of want to enhance it. Avengers, if you would be watching them without the fireballs and extra effects, those would be just guys running around in costume, right? So if you want to avoid the cringe, you can add the extra effects. Extra flares, extra lights, extra lamps, all goes. Now, finally, let's talk about strong and weak sides of this image. First of all, I love the fact that you've added a little bit of extra dirt on this whole area. It's a little bit too procedural, and for me, that makes it a bit less realistic. So if I were you, I would try to make some areas that are, let's say, a little bit dirtier and some areas that are less dirtier. We kind of have the gradient already, but it's still very uniform. It's either is or is not. And I kind of have this lack of, let's say, human interaction here. So since you are adding such obvious human interaction areas, possibly I would make this area the dirtiest or the cleanest, because either the people sitting here would be adding some of the extra dirt, or just would be scraping it off. Then the strong side of this image is definitely the colors. I love the color scheme, and that is huge. But for some reason, you just omitted the randomization on your textures. I know that in many cases it's not necessary, but so bad, so Hugh Luru, so bad, so sorry, mate. I mean, if I'm pronouncing it really wrong, I really apologize, but we're not going to dwell on it, so let's continue, because that's going to be costing us time. So typically you want to avoid it because you can clearly spot the patterns. Our brains are hardwired to always look for patterns. Why? Because patterns meant that there's going to be some kind of animal inside of that bush, and you want to avoid it because it's going to eat you. And we don't like being eaten by the animals because they typically went in packs. That also meant that if the pattern is repeating, snakes also have repeating patterns. So our brains react poorly to obviously weird patterns that are in our shots. That is why I would also recommend you to try to randomize textures like that. Not only by chipping in the edges or adding a little bit of, can I give in my file. Ahmed, at the moment it's not going to be possible because if you will send it, I won't be able to get to it, unfortunately. So what I don't like is this overburn. That is a part of the image that you kind of probably over photoshopped. So this part is just a bit too much. It's too overwhelming. It's a burnout and we don't like it. There's also no background, or the background isn't conveying that there's a building clear enough. Because if this is a building, it's not clear that it is, and it looks like a void. If it is not the building and it's a void, that's even worse. So I would really like to see some detail in here, or more trees or something. But I now see that this was supposed to be the, let's say, open air shot. Because of that, it's not going to look good. Then again, we've got this tree. Perfect, nothing about it, but it has a strong color compared to all the greens in your shot. I would try to make sure that all of your greens are going to be closer tonally, so the image is going to be slightly happier that way. I mean, it's going to be just a bit more vibrant if we're going to stick to the same color theme. Elements that are outside are slightly overburned, and you're oversaturating the burned areas, and that is why we're getting that effect. Overall, a beautiful image, very professionally made, but you can improve those elements in order to make your shots better. Better textures, more randomization, more consistent color theme on both bottom and the top, and the oversaturation of elements is just overwhelming and we want to avoid it. Plus, the sky needs to be always added, even if it's just a glimpse. Our brains are going to be very quick to pick up that there's something going on and we don't like it, and we don't like to feel uncomfortable with the images that we're looking at. So that's going to be always a bit of a problem that way. So now we're going to be talking about Dren's folder, and I'm wondering if that's the Dren I'm thinking about, but regardless, let's continue. So the first thing that really stands out is this rocket-launched dog that you've added here, or a cat. I know that you were going for motion blur and it's okay, but I am already a little bit, let's say, weird on this topic, and I'm going to just point towards one of the videos that we made on the channel, because it's a very important thing to consider whenever you're adding motion blur, and there's going to be quite a lot of images like that in our today's lesson. So first of all, whenever you're going to be dealing with motion blur, you want to know one thing. When objects are moving, let's say the moving leg and the stationary leg that we're actually standing on while moving is going to be less blurred. That is why our bodies are typically going to be less blurred, and our arms are going to be heavily blurred, and we're only going to have half a face because it's also moving. But if we're going to really get into it, what you're doing is you're doing this mistake where the people when we're doing it the wrong way are added as a vibrating objects, just zooming through the air. It looks like the Flash series. I don't know if you watched it, but they use the fake motion blur that is not based on the movement, and it only just looks like weird streaks or vibrating people. We want to avoid it because that is a mistake. That's a huge mistake. This is how motion blur looks like. Differently positioned objects or objects in motion are going to be blurred, and the bodies of those playing kids is actually a little bit less blurry. People, again, the same idea. But what's going on with in your case, this cat was launched from a cat launcher, and it's just flying through the air. We want to avoid it. It's best to just puppet some of the elements in your Photoshop. For example, you could grab the tail, a leg, and some part of the head, and motion blur them separately in post-production, because that means that it's not going to look good. The cat was fast, I think. Yes, the cat is fast, but the motion is just suggesting that it's zooming through, but the hands, the tail, the elements are not moving. It's just the movement. Let's say the motion blur is based on this kind of animation that was not really animated. Cut launcher, Elon Musk made it. Yes, probably that's exactly it. 3D models, let's go for people. Maybe we're going to do even faster, but dog. Because I remember that there was a dog here. No, there's a guy with a dog. People. And maybe a dog is not in people. Dog. Yeah, so we're going to take this one because this one looks the fastest. So let's wait for it. Sorry if I'm mean or something. I don't want to, I'm not trying to be. So we're going to take this very fast dog, and in regular cases, that dog is going to be moving at some kind of speed, and it's going to be going up and down because that's how the animals walk. So all the limbs would be blurred, and the body would be slightly less blurred. So we can actually see. Cat motion blur movement. What you're going to see is you're typically going to have some elements blurred and some of the elements will not be blurred. So that is the problem I have with that motion blurred cat, because you're typically going to see just a slight blur in some areas, unless that cat was jumping. Then maybe. But now if we want to reproduce the same idea, we're going to go for auto key, move the dog from point A to point B, somewhere around here, and it just moves like this. So let's go to the middle of the movement, and now we're going to select our camera, and here we're going to activate the motion blur. So on geometry, and let's start our rendering. You're immediately going to see that we're getting closer to what we saw in that case, but we're going to go hyperspeed. We're going to be lowering the shutter speed, and at this point we're getting a super fast dog that pretty much looks the same way because it's only producing that streak, but it's not necessarily really moving, and that is the problem that I have with that motion blur. It's better to not add the motion blur at all, because you might as well just add a small amount of it in post instead of adding those rocket launched animals and people, because it's really going to just look better, because now it's kind of hard to tell what it is. Okay, next thing is the bricks. I love them. Those are really nicely randomized, or they do seem to be randomized because it's hard to spot any kind of pattern. So that's a huge plus. What I would be, if I would be your client, I would ask for a slightly different framing. I would essentially ask you to give me a bit of this area. So I would be focusing on that. And because the margin is like, let's say, 3 to 5 centimeters right now, I would ask for the same type of margin at the top. So this way, the image would be a little bit better aligned with the image itself. Also, for the marketing purposes, it would be easier to add the telephone number or information without really obscuring the actual product, because again, the sky is only there to add the new and price on the per meter or something like that. So that will be the first thing I would be changing. It's the framing, because it kind of lacks the context because we don't have the sky. I would also make this frame just a little bit wider for the same reason, because I am pretty sure that the format was already decided by the client. I love the fact that you've added really nice reflections in here, and it seems that they're wobbly, but I'm going to assume that those are just the tiles that are doing that. So that's still good. But in order to make those reflections better and more realistic, you also need to build a bit of context on the left or right of your building. So again, we would need some trees under the building. So something is reflected here, and not only the fence, because the fence is fine. We love those trees around, but you could do the same trick that you did here, because that makes it look good. I also love the fact that you've added 2 layers of glass in here. That makes it look so much better. But if you're going to be creating any kind of windows, you also want to add that extra oomph to it by essentially, well, adding the noise map. This is going to be, again, a reoccurring theme. Window. Let's take my favorite window that I always use during our webinars. So this one, it has plenty of glass sheets in it, and I typically edit it to just have 1 layer of glass because I'm lazy like that. But if we take this material and try to do something with it, let's do a bit of a comparison in a second. So let's do that glass material, and we're going to just start our small rendering adventure. So first of all, let's find the angle at which this window is going to be actually reflecting something bright. So this would be pretty much it. So that's the reflection that I'm going for. This is too uniform. I don't like it because it's just too perfect. It's too unrealistic. So what we do typically to our glass objects in order to avoid it is we go for UVW randomization map. So let's go for maps, Corona, and let's add the Corona mapping randomizer. Just like that, we're adding it in. During my lessons, I tell my students how to set it up with multiple maps and how to do a little bit more adventurous stuff with it, but I'm going to just show you the basics where we are going to be adding just regular noise map. And the fact is that the map is still going to be randomized because now it's no longer a mapping randomizer, but map randomizer. So it's going to just do its thing. So this class, it's a little bit, well, too wobbly. So we can reduce the amount slightly. So let's go for 0.1. And we can also make this a bit better by changing the Z value to just stretch the reflections, or tiling let's say 4, and it's going to be more glass-like. We already talked about this technique, but again, I've overdid it a little bit, but by looking at any reflection, you're no longer seeing only the reflection, you're adding a little bit to it. Again, this is supposed to be a subtle effect with high, let's say, high value in size. So it's only going to be slightly wobbly, just like a glass would be. Because remember, glass is actually liquid and it's never going to be perfect. You want to just balance this out to have some of it, but not a lot. Plus, if you're going to have multiple layers of glass, it's just going to look a little bit more realistic, because over time you're going to get even more out of it. So this is definitely going to be a good technique to apply into your shots. I'm glad that you like it, Dren. Let's continue. And now, leaves and all the rest, Dren, you're going to learn how to correct all of that with us. I love the fact that you've added nice scatters, nice lighting, a bit too. I'm not sure if you went for fog in here, or is there some kind of extra light shining from below, because possibly there might be some kind of light shining from the, oh, those are the lamps then. Oh, so that makes sense. For a second, I didn't realize that. But that's even worse, because in that case, the lamps are a little bit too strong. You want them to be a bit more subtle, because they produce too much light. And as you can see, they're almost outshining the sun, although it's behind the clouds. It's still too much. Love the dark areas. Still, we can get stronger contrast and a little bit better lighting based on even on this mood, because now it's a little bit too ambient, because we do have strong light that's coming from the left side, but at the same time we don't see it in the shot. My suggestion, because there's a lot of trees, always fake the additional shadow somewhere out there to make the grass a bit better. I also love the grass, but I would be probably making it a bit darker based on what I see so far, because that would enhance or make us look at the building a little bit more, because that way it would be more in a context. Right now it's too dark to be the main theme of the shot. Last thing about the shot, I would slightly lower the camera in order to make this building a bit more monumental, but it's already looking good. So definitely cool work. You need reflections in those elements. Adding curtains in your windows to hide everything, it's okay, but remember to open 1 or 2 windows to add some sofa there or something. So actually, people, if somebody thinks that, yeah, the 3D designer was lazy, no, this was part of your design. You just chose not to, let's say, show everything because you want them to be open to their own ideas about the project. But at the same time, you were lazy and you just were trying to save a little bit of time. Everybody does it. I do it. Don't worry about it. The only actual mistake here, and something that I don't like, is the cat. Rest is just, we can make it better. Great job, and I'm looking forward to actually improving it with you in the future. So absolutely amazing shot. So here we are. Here we have another shot. So quite a coinky dinky, but again, hi, I was a VizAcademy student. Right now I'm a freelancer. Most of the time I do rendering for interior design company. So unfortunately the name wasn't given, or maybe you forgot to add it. So I'm just going to say that this anonymous person that joined our training, this is how our students are creating their work after, and this is a commercial work, so we can actually see that, well, it works. So things that I don't like here is definitely the over exposition in here. Typically, again, it's the daytime, so I would go very easy on that light. I would dim it so we would see the donut that it is, to make it a little bit easier to spot. That way, again, it would enhance the looks. I love the fact that you randomized everything and it just looks good. Look at the fact, look at this. We do have a bit of wobble on the TV, that the exact same wobble that we were talking about on the kitchen appliances, the windows. That is realistic. That looks good. So congratulations on that. My lessons weren't, my words we didn't go in vain. So everything here is good. The only really, let's say, the thing that I actually don't like about this image is the noise level. I would be rendering this for a little bit longer because I don't think you should feel comfortable delivering this level of noise to clients, or at least top up your denoising level, because it's a little bit, well, it's a bit much. That's looking good, but again, you need higher quality or high resolution textures. We can kind of see the pixels. This is not something that a layman's will be able to see because we've got really nice wobbliness, really nice roughness, everything looks good. But you can make it better. Nice chair, nice chair, nice chair. Okay, looking good. And I wish you all the best, and looking forward to getting your name. So DM me on our chat so I can know that it was you. And maybe it was a dog. Maybe that was the dog out there, but I'm pretty sure it looks like a cat to me. It runs like a cat. I do have a dog, the best dog ever. So generally, second to just remember that this is my doggo. This is his typical furry position. This is his best spot in the house. He likes to sit on the window in the plants because that's just the best. And then this is him with his gang. So okay, let's continue. His name is Render. Why Render? Because whenever my clients call me, I am really confident saying I'm taking care of the render right now. So no lie was made. Let's see. Hey Mike, how do you create a cove light behind a circular mirror? Harkaran, this is a very easy topic to discuss. Whenever you have any circular object, you just want to create the cylinder. And once you're here, you're definitely going to have two options. You're either going to convert that object into editable poly, like this, And let's say that it's going to be 3 or 5 centimeters away from your wall. So what you're going to do is inset a little bit, extrude a bit. This is actually an optional move with this extrude, because we might as well just create another object, and possibly it's going to be just a circle, autogrid. And let's just go for the middle of the object. Perfecto. Now this is it. Once you have an object like this, you want to extrude it a little bit and make sure that one thing is being taken care of. You're going to turn on the cap and the start. This way you're going to be able to add a corona light material to the object, and you pretty much just created it. There's no extra move or step you have to take to make it look good, because it's all going to come down to the intensity, the distance, and the angle at which you're working. The most important thing is to avoid any element of your light to be intersecting with your object, so you want to put it a little bit higher. For a second there, you might have actually seen the glitching happening. Maybe we're going to be able to recreate that glitch. Okay, and now let's try it again. Nope. Oh, there was it. There it was. So whenever we make our light intersect with other objects, we're going to be able to see those glitches, see? And this can happen to your render, and this can be a plotter somewhere out there, and it's going to be very hard to spot, but you're always going to be thinking, hey, why is it happening? It's because your light or light material is intersecting with your objects, and that is why we avoid it. I hope that this makes sense. Also, typically the amount of extrusion I'm adding for my light in such circumstances is just 1 centimeter, and typically for normal interior I'm going to go for about 10 to 25 intensity, but it all varies depending on the shot. Okay, so here we've got aspiring 3D visualizer trying to be better. So the thing that we can spot here is the lack of randomization on the reflections. So again, I'm going to ask you to add the wobble even to the metals, because metals are actually very cool to have those extra wobbly elements. Even the best metallic objects at your house, at your railings, everything is going to be slightly wobbly. If it's not, it's going to just look fake, so you want to avoid that. In order to improve a shot that's luxurious like that, that's the first thing you're doing. The next thing is the overwhelming amount of noise on your glass. A trick that I'm going to sell to you guys, but don't tell anybody, is whenever you're going to have a chandelier that's going to require a lot of small glass objects, you want to go for roughness 0.1 or even lower. This is going to at first create very noisy object as a chandelier, but it's going to overwhelmingly denoise better and faster because it's starting on a little bit different lighting scheme. Plus, you want to go for the refraction that's going to be slightly losing a little bit of light. That way, again, your denoising is going to, let's say, each pass that Corona is going to be rendering is going to be way better for the glass, because not only it's going to be losing light, so more light is going to be produced from the other sources, but also by refracting it, it's going to be blurry, so it's going to be let's say taken care of faster by anti-aliasing, and we're not going to get those extra dots, because the dots that produce this noisy appearance in your glass, this is typically not only because possibly the glass objects are touching the light sources, but also it's possible that inside of that tube a light ray is going in and it's just going to be bouncing, and it never stops because it just comes in at a very weird angle, and that is why we're going to see those overwhelmingly weird pixels, because this is where the glass, all the light was led by the glasses built, and that is why we're getting this extra excessive noise. So to avoid it, we're going to start with higher noise but get a clearer render way faster and avoid the super overwhelming elements. Plus, you're overexposing some of the elements, you're missing the the exterior element, or let's say the background, and that's pretty much it. Hey, can you explain what is in 3ds Max and what is Corona? Yes, Grifford. So 3ds Max is pretty much the software that we use to 3D model and create materials. What are the differences? So the 3ds Max is basically the software, the hub in which we're working. So that's where you model, create textures, materials, while Corona is just a rendering engine. So think about it as compilation, or let's say compiling software that is used to calculate all of the settings that you did set up in 3ds Max in order for Corona to calculate. So the images are calculated by Corona renderer, and this is the engine we're using to display. So in other words, if our renders would be games, or well, anything. If this would be a game, this would be the gaming engine. Corona would be the gaming engine that displays, while 3ds Max would be the language in which we're trying to program the images. So that's pretty much it. And the language is also shown by this UI that is actually super easy to use. So that's pretty much the differences. There are built-in rendering engines in 3ds Max, for example, Arnold and Art Renderer, Skyline, but we do prefer to use Corona. That's an external software. How can you send? I was supposed to be already. Wait a second. I'm in a flight mode right now, so sorry, and I cannot take it. How is it possible that people can call me if my phone is in a flight mode? So sorry for that. That wasn't planned. Yeah, let's continue. Next image. This time it's ArchLive. So this image, it was sent by one of our reoccurring viewers. So there's a lot to unpack. Very cool of you that you've sent this image, and there are elements that I want you to improve and potentially even upload this image again once you're going to be fixing it. So here we are. First of all, the texture quality. It really shows that this element is not only repeating, but also this texture is quite low quality. So we need to change that. We've got a bit of texture repetition. You can see that the texture is just overwhelmingly repeating. So possibly you're using those snippets from some kind of websites that show us the small samples, and then you just make this as your whole texture. You want to possibly download a couple of good wood textures, but then we also have our ceiling. So this ceiling is clearly based on the floor generator with default setting of row offset. So please make sure to keep that, well, if it's part of your how can I show you my work? Amal, at the moment you won't be, because we were able to accept those images to talk about them before the webinar. At the moment it's impossible, but I'm working on a very cool way of showing those images. It's just that it's we already have quite a lot of shots to go through. Now how do you create an accent wall with a design? Show me which one and what kind of design you want. So Harkana, we can do everything in 3ds Max, but we need to know what we want to create. So here again, I would call it a glitch, because this line possibly is supposed to be, let's say, dividing your cabinets, but it just is a plane in front of them, and you can clearly see that there's just no way that this is supposed to be that way. So I would definitely remodel that part, and also this is impossible to reach, so possibly not the very fortunate design. I like the color scheme, that's the one thing, but you're abusing or using too much of the yes, maybe next time you're welcome to do so. We're going to have another review in a month, Amal, so please be on the lookout. I'm going to create another link in just a couple of hours after this one is done, so you're going to be able to participate next time. Okay, so the bevel, go lower. Make sure to, if this is supposed to be the part of design, keep it, but I am definitely going to opt for a randomization on each of those tiles. Then we do need the same type of randomization in here. It looks good. This one actually looks good, but we don't have any distance from our floor. But speaking of the floor, we have a very well original setup. You're trying to go for a chevron or herringbone. I never remember which one is which material on the floor, but on the tiles. So that is definitely not how it is supposed to be done. I recommend you to download and or purchase the full version of Floor Generator, or you could just build those based on individual planks and then cut it. The texture on your sofa, it actually looks good, but it's a little bit stretchy. So possibly you did some Photoshop on it in order to make it look that way. So you just need a stronger fabric, because here it looks good. So possibly this also is going to be easy to save, but again, it's the quality of the textures. The props, I see Evermotion elements and a lot of good stuff, but you didn't work on individual elements, and that is why they're all fully matte. So we need to work on those reflections, because that is going, if you do decide to add a detail like that, you have to spend a bit of time and bring back the reflections. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But you can see that this is a little bit burned out, and because of that, we're going to blame the outside. So obviously you must control that, because this is just radioactive. We avoid it. I think the design is fine. I actually like it because it's very cool. It reads really well, but there are those mistakes, especially the floor, the tiles here, the textures, this stripe that is dividing, but it's not really. Then the mistake would be repetition of your textures. You can clearly see that there's a lot of repetition. This doesn't happen in real life, at least not to that extent. Also, a funny element is that your windows are open from outside. That's definitely not supposed to be there because, well, you just don't open your windows from outside. Let's agree on that. But this is just a small mistake that I wanted to point out, that it kind of made me smile, because this was a mistake that I made once, and my clients were a little bit upset about it, that I'm planning to add windows that are opened from outside. Am I crazy? And I was like, dude, that was a mistake. Come on, chill. Also, a bit of chamfer, possibly, and that's going to be it. I love the design. It's good. There's a lot of detail in here, so absolutely amazing. So why when I put gloss map in the material, it looks like that have no reflection, and when I have to decrease it from 100 to 50 to turn on, it I might be doing something wrong, I guess. Well, William, it all depends on what type of materials you're using, because sometimes when glossiness maps are actually designed to be roughness maps, glossiness and roughness is the opposite in values. So possibly you're adding a little bit of too high values in that roughness, William, and that is why you have to decrease it by 50%. Remember that for glossiness map, the maximum glossiness means that it's going to be shiny, while maximum roughness is going to be matte. So if something is maximum, if the map is almost fully black, it means that the glossiness is not going to take place, so there's not going to be almost any reflection at all. So it all depends on the maps. Next, we've got a beautiful image and with a little bit of a story here. So my name is Mira and I'm a self-taught 3D artist. Me too. I've always loved this kind of art. I'm really lucky to start working in 3D as a 3D artist a few years ago. Unfortunately, because of I'm self-taught, I don't have have real feedback on my work from some other experienced artists. Honestly, I feel you, because each company I went into, and especially that I don't want to sound like I'm sniffing my own farts, because that's not what I'm trying to say, but every job that I went to, I was the only competent 3D designer that worked there, or I was the pioneer engineer, the person that had to came up with the idea, how do we do stuff, and I was never taught how to do it. I was obviously offered some help online from people that were very kind to me, so I appreciate those people. But at the same time, I always felt very lonely in my work. So that is why this story is really hitting me it's close to home, right? So what I'm trying to say is you are not alone. And to really get good advice and to really get some kind of review from other artists, there's one thing you can do. Join groups and chats that are created for professionals. Potentially, you can go to the Chaos Campus. You can join Corona Renderer groups that I'm also an admin at. So you're going to be able to reach out and communicate with other people. Over time, you're going to be able to sort who's, let's say, on your level, who's friendly, who's not, who's just there to start trouble, and you're going to be able to get more friends. I currently run approximately 5 groups that are designed for 3D artists just on Facebook. I've got private chats with plenty of groups like that, and I frequent those because I like talking to people like this. I like having this conversation because it helped me a lot. So remember that you're not alone. Also, sending it here was a very good idea. So let's unpack and let's talk about your work and the strong and weak sides. First thing that kind of stands out to me is the ship. It's looking good, but another 3D community source is Autodesk 3ds Max Discord. That is actually a very cool place. Go for it. It is good, but the 3ds Max community is, let's say, a little bit broader, and I'm assuming that we're talking to somebody who's ArcViz artist, where we're mostly working with architecturals, right? So by the way, it's hard to find someone some of the mistakes on my own. If you or anyone else would like to see my other work, you can visit my Instagram. So this is the Instagram. Thank you so much. I actually visited it, and well, if somebody else is interested in that, go ahead and visit it. So the ship is the first thing that stands out. I think the horizon line is not necessarily the best at the moment, because either it should be a little bit higher or there's something wrong with the HDRI that you've used, because it's a little bit too low. The water is just cutting, and we kind of have a suggestion that it should be going for all the eternity, but the ship is on the verge of the horizon. So definitely that is a little bit far-fetched. So that element kind of stands out. Please look at some of the images of ships that are on the horizon. This ship would be super tiny, unless this is the Jeff Bezos type of ship, I mean the yacht, then maybe it would be that big on the horizon, but it's still the thing. Famous add-on to all exteriors for everybody, the birds that have no texture in them. That's just something that everybody does. That's not a mistake. It's just funny. To actually give you some feedback on the shot, I think that you've used some kind of AI on this shot to some extent, because there's some kind of weird bloom going on here, or you've added a very, let's say, your sky in Photoshop, and you've overreached with the masking. That is why we've got this weird blur on some of the elements and some others don't. So that'll be it. To avoid it, make sure to render your images with the sky exactly set up, but try to pull it through this kind of, let's say, this kind of chain. So Corona, we're going to be going for Corona bitmap. Let's take this one, Corona bitmap. Then whatever controls or corrections you want to add is going to be Corona color correction. So Corona color correct. And in the end, you add the maps Corona and go for Corona tone map control. Make sure to turn off all three or the first two. This way, whatever you set up here is going to be the exact thing you're going to be rendering regardless of any other circumstances. If you're going to lower the exposure, you have to just start over the rendering process, but the image is always going to have the same brightness. So make sure to use this, because if you're going to be adding your images that way, that's going to ruin some of the quality of your image. So that's going to be one thing I can tell you. The textures are absolutely phenomenal, but again, reflections, they lack a little bit of, let's say, randomization. So please make sure to go for that. Textures, fantastic. People, fantastic. Right now, there are some AI enhancers that allow people to glamorize them. I kind of prefer what you did here. It looks really good. So I'm down to, you are really funny. Thank you. What is the group you're admin in? Corona Renderer Poland, that would be it. That one I can give you out right now, because rest is just, let's say, different. Now let's continue. Right now, the water. I'm not sure how you did the water, but I'm assuming that this is noise added to the water geometry. While it could be good, the better solution would be to do the same thing, but from the level of material. So if you would add the bump as, let's say, material in the material, this would not be as choppy. You can see that there is some geometry problem going on, and the elements would be a little bit smoother. So definitely that would be it. If that is already the case, and we're still getting the choppy bump, that can mean that you're either using too high values for the bump, or there's another possibilities that your bump is just lacking quality. So how do we add quality? You can see that here in levels, if we go for fractal, we're going to be able to add more levels, and in the end, it's going to just give us a little bit longer rendering, but at the same time, it's just going to have smoother transition from one object to another. So that way, again, you're going to get better quality all over the place on your water. I could create the water, but I think we're going to run out of time. Beautiful element. That one is just perfect. But again, I kind of need to tell you that you need to render your shots for a little bit longer. That is going to make them better. And in the end, the only thing that kind of stands out is I'm not sure if this lady is not a giantess. So possibly she's the correct size, but at the same time, she kind of stands out in a sense that I think that she might be a bit too tall for just regular shot. I mean, she might be overscaled a little bit, but at the same time, I might be wrong, and just ignore that. She's very saturated and very bright. So even if you zoom out, that's the first thing that you're going to see. I would try to tone down that character a little bit, because we obviously want to focus mostly on the building, not the person in it. I also would suggest a stronger, more dynamic shot to highlight a little bit more of the building. But if you're going for the mood and this was creative work, why would you be adding plants like that in the horizon? Is there something burning, or is this a coal plant that somebody is just trying to destroy the horizon? I know this is just not something that you normally think about, but you must think about it, about that from now on. So let's continue. Can I use 3ds Max to module and then render in Unreal Engine? Yes, you can, and actually people do that a lot. That's how most of the games are made. Unreal Engine is great for 3D modeling, and it's getting better and better each year. But at the moment, when it comes to 3D modeling, 3ds Max is way more efficient than Unreal Engine currently is. Maybe in the future Unreal Engine is going to be sufficient for that, but 3ds Max currently takes the lead. Unreal Engine, as you probably know, is a totally different rendering and let's say engine on its own. So it's not going to be CPU based, it's going to be actually GPU based. So you're going to need a strong graphics card in order to make it work. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about somebody who just sent their work and called themselves India. So I guess this person is representing the whole India, or this is just person called India, which actually happens. So I'm not going to talk about that, but this obviously is an image created by somebody who's getting started. I'm not going to be saying that this is ugly, wrong, or not good enough, but you're definitely going to need to work a little bit more, and I'm going to give you a good tip. Whenever you work with one-point perspective images, you will see that, let's say, those lines here, and here and here and here, those lines are always going to be pointing towards one spot, and typically that spot is going to be somewhere in the middle of the image. So that is going to be your horizon line, and let's say that this level is our horizon line because it does kind of look that way if we try to get there. So because this is our horizon line, you do not allow any elements to poke below the horizon line, because horizon should be also always filled to the brim. We should have something in this area, because if there's just a sky poking through it, it's not going to be looking good, and it's just going to look like a building pasted onto a background. Pretty much the same scenario here. We can clearly we can better see the horizon line here. The cars are looking great, but you're actually just moving them from left to right, just like we did with the dog, and not actually moving the wheels. Again, it's not something that people will point towards as a mistake, but because we're so used to actually seeing the real motion blur in real life, it's actually going to matter. Please check my name. It's if it's already selected, we will. Hi Mike, can you give your opinion on Twinmotion rendering? Is it I'm Twin good or not? So Twinmotion is actually good. It's fast, and it's always going to be one question. What are you after? Quality or quantity? If you are after quantity and you want to show your clients a quick video of walkthrough and plans are moving, it's all going to be easier with Twinmotion because it's designed to do just that. But if you're after pure quality, you're going to be going for V-Ray, Corona, software that is designed to deliver the best photorealistic shots, but it's definitely going to be a trade-off versus the speed of Twinmotion, because Twinmotion can produce images per seconds, while Corona can create images per minutes. So that's really it. And then we've got this image, and I'm not sure what's going on here because the quality is just way different in this one, so I'm just guessing that you're more acquainted with the interiors than exteriors. So to improve your shot, you're definitely going to need better textures, better quality models, fill in the windows with something more interesting than just reflection. Also make sure to scatter some interiors. Add I already said that you need to add better textures, not overburn the whites, because this is overburned, this is not white, this is just burned out element. Also, since this building was imported from some kind of ArchiCAD or other CAD software, we didn't fix the arches, and that's a mistake, so please make sure to correct that. This is a very well-known package of parallax that you used here. That's okay, no issues there, but then you absolutely have to continue with the quality that you have prepared for us at the bottom and actually show it on the building. So that's it. Also, everything is oversaturated, undersaturated, and this is overburned and clamped. Clamped means that we're not reaching the white color, and instead all the overburned areas are switched or changed into grayish blobs, and that is very apparent in here. Again, this is a daylight shot, but you're mostly trying to rely on the external light, so you have to balance this before you continue. wobbliness on the metallic elements, and actually this would be a really nicely done shot, so congratulations. Here we've got another shot created by Aniket Gonpare. Give me advice. So my advice is continue following our videos on our YouTube channel, because this is one of the exteriors that you guys can create on your own from scratch on and it was highlighted on our YouTube channel. So the only mistake that I can see here is the horizon line, and so your trees need to go lower, or you need to build a little bit of something that's going to block all of that light from poking from below your trees, because that is not a good look for your exterior, because this looks beautiful. Also, go slightly easier on the amount of bloom and glare you're using, because that's a bit much. Good job, and thank you for showing us that you can actually, that our videos can work, because that is amazing. Here we've got a Pedro. Pedro is frustrated. So how can I improve this image? I'm frustrated right now. Thank you. So Pedro, don't get angry. This image is actually looking good, but there are some photographic rules that you're not following, and the image is not looking as good as it should. So let's go back to images that we talked about in the beginning. You can see that the top is really straight. All of the lines on the z-axis, x-axis are straight. Also the z-axis, so the height lines, you can see them that they're perfectly straight. In your case, we don't have that. We introduced a third perspective. So what does it mean? This line here should be perfectly straight, just straight, and it's not. You can see that it's poking its head a little bit higher. So this is no longer 1-point perspective. That also makes this part a little bit skewed, and it's never going to look that amazing. Some elements are overexposed, so lower the exposition in your shot. That way we're going to see more detail here and here. That's going to allow us to actually enjoy this aluminium coffee table that you've added. This, I wouldn't be necessarily frustrated with it, because it nearly mimics a real photo, so this is beautiful. But that one thing that the one rule that you broke is the biggest problem you have with the shot. Plus, you can see that although you added a lot of the additional edges to your object, possibly you're either using wrong normal map, but we can see those lines forming. This is a mistake, this is a problem, please fix it. Overwhelming noise is coming from the refraction that you're giving here, so possibly lose this refraction for translucency, and it should go easier to render. Plus, we've got some kind of light poking through the small crevices in your elements, but honestly, quality textures, quality models, quality lighting, everything looks good. It's just overexposed, and for that reason, it's not looking as good as it should. So let's go to Photoshop, but meanwhile, we're going to continue to the next shot. So we talked about this one. Now, I, Pranav Patel from India, studying architecture since 4 years now, and want to make some career in 3D visualization. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is you're actually at the right path. Right now, I see that you're adding some movement to your shot, a little bit of, let's say, gist in it, and it looks good. So continue. But you're definitely using a very low quality HDRI, and it shows in the reflections. So you have to work on that. I see that you're using environments from either Blender or by downloading from Google Maps into Blender and into Max. Possibly you want to change that into something that's going to be a little bit higher quality, because it really stands out. So I would even be more inclined to just add a white building without any materials, to just ghost it, because here quality, a little bit more motion, but it looks good, and some elements are kind of weird, but everything looks good, and still I like the detail that you're going for. The problem is that you are not following one rule. You've introduced the third perspective, which is, again, in photography for the most part considered a mistake. To fix it, what you need to go for is the tilt shift correction in Corona. So make sure to correct your camera as soon as you can. So let's try to make the same mistake, but with something less problematic. So this is an image that has third perspective. What is the deal with third perspective, or what's the problem? Well, we want to always have this line perfectly straight. The Z line in most of the cases should be perfectly straight. The only cases where you don't want it is when you want to break the rule for artistic reasons. But I doubt that this was your plan. So what you should be going for is just simply automatic vertical tilt. And that way you can see that the lines are now a little bit better, and it instantly looks a little bit cleaner, more professional. And again, it's going to be closer to what you need to improve your shot. So definitely that is it. Can you suggest any website for textures? So I like getting my textures from Texture Heaven. I like the Loot Pixel. So that is actually a nice website. So Looked Pixel. So this is actually a very cool website that I use, and if you sign up to that, you might actually get some points if you use VizAcademy codes. So type in VizAcademy or ask them for the VizAcademy discount. I don't remember the code right now, so I cannot give it to you exactly. Sorry for that. So I also like to salvage my textures from 3D models that I look up online, because sometimes you're going to see something like this and you instantly know, hey, I want to create something similar in my shot. I'm just going to purchase this model and get the texture because it looks good, so I'm going to use it. That's it. That's how I get my textures for the most part. Now, we've got this area is pretty much for the professionals. So we've got Harandeep. So my name is Harman, and I am a CGI artist with 7 years of experience. I specialize in creating hyper-realistic CGI renders for architects and interior renders. So as for the hyper-realistic, you're close to it. I'm not going to say that this is not. Thank you, Mihao. Thank you. I've mentioned your work, so you might actually want to look at the very beginning, because that's when your image actually was very useful. Thank you for sending it. Do you fix the arches from CAD and smooth modifier? Lydia, yes, I do that. I do rebuild that a lot. You did? Amazing. So do you fix the arches from CAD with smooth modifier? I do use that on most of the models, but not all models are going to be smoothable that way. So sometimes I remodel the models that I get from CAD. Unfortunately, this is a different technology for 3D models, and that is why it's always going to look subpar compared to the 3D models created by, 3ds Max. So Harandeep, let's see what we've got in here. So first of all, you do control the textures. You guys can see that the textures are amazing. But as for somebody who claims that you're after the hyper-realism, I'm going to point out a small mistake going on here, sir. So please make sure to, adjust that, because it's not exactly what I would be going for. Plus, your sky is overexposed. You can clearly see that this is just white in here. You want to always add a bit of gradient. It's good here, but then it overexposes, and we're getting to a very nasty point where it's 255. It's too strong and too much. Your normal map, Mr. Hyperrealistic, sorry for that, I'm not trying to be mean. So your normal map seems to be upside down. So you have to flip the normal or the UVW mapping, because right now you can see that it goes inside, and that's the only reason for it is either the mapping is upside down or rotated, or you've actually flipped the object. Possibly the texture that you're using is not really correctly set up. There are additional options in our materials whenever we have normal maps. So Corona normal map. Whenever we have normal map, you can see the flip, the red and green. Typically, you're going to be going for some of those values. That render is everything but hyper-realistic. Don't be mean. Alas, this is a very good render, and I wouldn't say that it's bad, because it really delivers on many levels. First of all, look at the mapping. That's a very high quality mapping. Then we've got high attention to detail, which is really something that you should be pointing towards a lot. We've got good quality textures, we've got good models, and well, very low repetition, but again, we kind of need more versatility in our textures. But I wouldn't be that mean. We definitely want to add a bit more, but definitely this is a good work. So the mistakes that I can point out is well, kinda you omitted this arch, because every other arch is super high quality, but this one you kinda went easy on. Then we've got the overexposition, kinda low quality plant. This can be fixed very easily, so no issue out there. You possibly didn't add all of the textures as they're supposed to be, because you can still see the CGI Box Studios logo, so you want to possibly work on that in the future for the hyper-realism's sake. The sky kind of looks good, but the horizon is kind of missing. I would love to see something extra here for the depth purpose. The reflections need the wobbliness that we mentioned, but those reflections are actually done really correctly. So congratulations, that's actually cool image. So good job. We've got somebody named Rajin Hayel. So this is a unique image. I would say that we didn't get heavily filtered images yet, so I decided that we're going to mention it. So this, you can see that there's a very strong filter in it, just like you would be adding some kind of filters from Instagram. This is considered, let's say, not very popular within our arms, I would say, because most of the people are very fixated on either hyper-realism or the element of different aesthetics where everything is shiny. And here, because it's blue, we're getting, let's say, type of the opposite of Mexico filter. So you know what I mean, right? So in this case, it actually is good. The shot is nice. I can see that you're using quality models, but there's a little bit of repetition in the textures that we can point towards. So I would definitely switch the texture into Corona at tile map and work my way up from there. That way you're going to get a little bit better quality overall. The tiles do need a bit stronger reflections and a little bit better mapping, because right now it's not clear why this is breaking. So I would break the tiles in order to add the ground in here. But this is just me being very detailed, right? A bit of damage or a bit of dirt wouldn't hurt, and also reflections are too perfect. But it's a very interesting idea, so good job. It's always good to see your live stream, sir. Thank you. Hey, VR Division, nice to have you. So by the way, check out VR Division. They're very cool. Now Ahmed Nasir. So we've got 3 images from one person, and we've got a lot of good quality. So I love this image for one very reason. Lighting is amazing. It kind of looks kind of cyberpunky, but this vibrating guy is probably high on something, because this is not how motion blur should look like. It's better to just leave those people alone. Don't make them vibrate. It just don't. But yeah, I really love the lighting. It's really amazing, and this looks like a commercial work. So one thing that I can really point towards here is that yes, this image is not the luxurious lobby of a hotel that everybody would be paying $10 billion for. This is a regular work for a vape shop or something like that. And this is actually a cool thing, because you've created a regular shop for a regular client, which is the typical client that most of us will be getting when we're starting. But then we can clearly also see that not that quality translates to the next image, that is your interior. The elements that I kind of don't like is the TV is just too perfect. This kind of takes away from the realism. The wobbliness, just noise map, and that's going to be perfect. The buildings outside are falling, or we're falling back, so that's going to be an issue. So you must work a little bit more on the oh, that's Dubai. So you must work a little bit more on the environments, because the best rule on how to set up your background is to follow the lines. So first we're going to be able to grab this line, which points us towards one spot like this. So this is pretty much going to be always our where the horizon of our shot is. So everything here below here is going to be pointing towards top. You can see that now they're pointing towards top, and everything above that line is going to be pointing down. So this is almost a 1-point perspective image. Then we've got another thing that's happening here. So because we can clearly also translate that line, and it really goes all the way down out there, that's also going to be the another proof where the horizon is. But this is not exactly let's say shown in the background image. My suggestion for you would be to do a bit of a trick. I'm going to, guys, show you something that, again, I shouldn't, but because it's almost illegal. No, it's not. But let's say so I'm not going to be exploring this thing with you, but I'm going to sell it to you for free because it's free. Let's just continue. So what I want to show you is Google Earth Studio. You all know Google Earth, and well, what is it and why is it special? Because you can do that, and you can actually go to the Google itself and render from them the views from the whole world, wherever you are and whatever shot you want to create. They kind of have a bit higher quality for some of the cities, and if you're living in Yakushima Island, you're probably not going to get a very good quality, let's say, aerial shots there. But if you're in London, if you're in Dubai, if you're in New York, you're actually going to be able to download a very cool views, because you're going to be able to position your camera exactly at, let's say, 200 meters above the ground, where the at the floor of the building you're currently rendering interiors from, get the exact panorama that you're interested in, and that's going to be slightly lower quality than you would normally get with working with photos. But the quality is not going to be that important compared to the accuracy you're gaining. So check this out, because that's going to be something that you probably will be able to take advantage of. And in the end, we've got this exterior that I just wanted to highlight because it looks good. It has beautiful reflections. Everything here works. Kind of the wobbliness, I would go for different size and different amount. Plus, I would love to see one thing happening here is for each individual window, I would get a different wobble, because typically you don't want to have that translation. But this is actually good. I'm going to give you points for actually doing the wobble, because it makes your building so much more realistic. All the reflections are like that on glass buildings. I mean, not exactly like that, but you're very close. So Ahmed, this is actually a very cool folder. And now we've got one of the images that I found to be aesthetically pleasing. The composition, the lighting is really great. The quality is actually very high, and I love the fact that it's showing. The problems are the let's say the layers of gradients on the top. This can be the result of, let's say, your setup in Photoshop. So whenever you're working in Photoshop and you're going to go for a very low bit rate, so image mode, and you're going to go for 8 bits for channels, you're going to possibly run into an issue where the gradient is not going to have enough of quality in it. And you want to also always have a To reduce banding, you're going to also in gradients try to activate reduce banding, because that's banding. The bands are very visible. So now let's go ahead and talk about this image, because as I said, we can quickly fix it. So filter, camera raw filter, and we're going to be doing just the easiest things ever. So let's lower the exposure a little bit. You can now see a lot of detail coming to life, and it's actually really amazing. So we can top it up with contrast. So we're going to make the elements more gloomy, a bit more highlight in shadows, so it's easier for us to see. We're going to keep this oversaturation in green, because that's going to be something that we're going to be pointing towards, because that's the statement of the image. And then we're going to go for a bit of effects. So in effects, we're going to go for vignette, because again, stronger. And here we can now go for slight amount of highlights, maybe lower that. The vignette is looking good. So depending on your tastes, you're either going to go for clarity a lot, or just for this one wall, because that one wall is really going to look amazing if we add a bit of clarity. But I don't want to overdo it. So for all of you guys that have silky smooth renders, and now I'm going to use topaz denoise, but this is only for the purpose of showing you that how close this person is to finishing their image, but I do not recommend topaz denoise at any point of your lives, because the licensing is actually annoying. I mean, I bought it way back, and since that time, even though I emailed them, hey, could you please remove the buy a new license, because hey, we've got so exciting updates, you've got the lifetime license, but hey, how about buying a new one? Each freaking time when I open this software, and I really hate it. I never ever going to purchase that software again, because it's just at this point it's a malware for me. So now we've got all of that, but this aluminium object, let's just go for a bit of contrast in it. So we're going to burn it. So let's burn that a little bit, not in shadows, but in midtones. So we're going to be burning that. So we actually have metallic elements, so we actually can focus on something, but we can just do more of that burning. So let's burn a couple of more spots so we don't look at that, because that's the gloomy spot. And in the end, we want to do the lens correction by just setting up this one line that's annoying, custom, and we're going to be now going for the perspective. So okay, let's add some small values in plus. Okay, I guess this is it. We're closer to what we need, and now look at that. This is a nice one-point perspective image. It conveys what we're interested in, and it really is now improved. So I wouldn't be frustrated. I would be happy that I got such an interesting image. And by the way, the reason why I added this denoise is to also show you one thing. A lot of times we saw a lot of images that were super smooth. Typically, you want to add a bit of photographic grain on top of your image, just like 3 to 5%. So it's actually going to be photographic grain and not the noise, because that really makes it look like a photo. Again, it's a little bit of a cheat, and you mostly want to have most of the noise in the most darkest areas. We can mask it out easily, but you know, the ISO is also going to play a role in there, but most of the time you're going to have most of the noise in the most darkest spots, even in photography. This is not only akin to rendering engines. So again, this is a beautiful image. I love the fact that it just works. Kinda bummer that the horizon isn't fully filled. That would be a 10 out of 10 if it would, but I kinda like the aesthetics. I would say that this part is what this image is missing. A little bit of horizon, a little bit of more context. You can see that it's easy to make this building breathe. It's just here, this is the important part. This is our margin. This is everything that is highlighting our shot, and really cool, very, very nice looking image. Guys, I think we went through all of the images that I had prepared, but we also have one from Ahmed. It's I've been a self-studying 3D visualization for 4 years, and I have been working as a freelancer for 2 years. So I can only say that it looks good. Everything is on the right level, but at the end, I would like you to start working more with the overexposition in your image, because that's considered a huge mistake. Also, your shots are a little bit, I would say, grim. You can make them a bit better by focusing more on the reflections. A floor like this would be very reflective. Plus, people pay money to avoid this kind of flooring. You have to correct it. Plus, whenever you're using the technique that you did, you can see that there's a problem with the mapping, and I'm assuming that you are aware of that, but not sure how to fix it. So I'm going to show you this one element as the last tip of a day, and we're going to be departing soon. Also, guys, right now our last webinar is hidden, because last time I've asked you to leave a comment to win a bit of a prize, right? So we stand by it, but right now we disabled that video for a few minutes to make sure that the accounts that are posting the comments are real. And on the next webinar, I'm going to be announcing the winner. So please make sure to tune in to see it, because if you don't, you might miss it, and what a tragedy that is going to be. So let's assume that this is our floor. First of all, what do we do if our planks are too big and they're already established? We don't want to remodel everything. A trick that you can try using is use push modifier and push them a little bit. Maybe the chances are that you're going to be able to just slightly reduce the distance, especially if you would be a little bit more accurate than I was. There are chances that you're going to be able to get rid of it. So next thing that I would like you to consider is, whenever you're going to be working with your material, especially if you already have some kind of mapping on your object, and you can see that, oh my god, and now I have to start over. No, because even if this is all just going to be one gigantic object right now, I don't need to start over. You can go for UVW X-form, UVW X-form, yes. We're going to be rotating our texture here. Then we're going to be changing the tile on y-axis, and suddenly we're at the right scale, and now all we need to do is add the proper randomization to our to each of our plank, and that way it's going to be fantastic. Do you like it? I do. So this is it for today, guys. Okay, so now we're going to be going through the chat. So before we depart, so let's see. Okay, your community is awesome. I guess yours is too. So, is there any chance to review my render? Is there since the beginning? Ahmed, I hope that I've got to that image. Hello, Mike. This is Harris. Please review my renders. I would really love to, but it's already 2 hours and I'm really getting tired. So I'm going to try to put in all of your images next time. But I'm still going to be highlighting all of the images one by one. Now, please check. My name is Abib. Okay. Your community is awesome. These are really good images, and the critic is very valuable. Thank you for that. Please check mine. Hi, Mike. Lots of love from Pakistan. I love also send my render. Hi, is there a chance to send some of my renders too? Parishan, next time, I promise, I'm going to make a note for everybody who was in the chat and I missed them. I'm going to try to prioritize your images for the next time. Also, you can add a red dot. So so I can remember about that promise that I made. So this is it. I'm sorry, I have a bit of an off-topic question. What program do you use to be able to paint on the screen? I want it. So this is Epic Pen, and this is a very cheap software, so I would definitely recommend it. But if you do go for it, I would definitely recommend you to change the key binds, because sometimes it's going to go crazy, especially with this. This is very annoying, and I haven't yet changed the key binds, so please do it. So now my work. Thank you, Mihao. Mike, could you please show the damaged material? Yes, that's actually what we're going to be doing for the next webinar. We're going to be talking about damaged materials, how to add scars, how to pretty much mess up your materials to make them more worn and torn. That's really going to be cool. I would really appreciate if you can if you can say at least a single thing about my image on the bottom left corner. Mustafa, okay, let's see. But didn't we already say something about your image? And so bottom left corner. Is this yours? Wait a second. We did talk about all the images on the left. So that's it. But guys, there's a bunch of images that we didn't mention, and those two are also going to go to that stock right now. Sorry for this. I'm actually I feel bad about it, but I hope that you can understand that I'm trying my best to talk about all of your images. So those are the images that didn't get to be named, and we didn't review them, but I feel like they deserve at least a little bit of exposure. So if you see your image, congratulations, those are actually beautiful. But for some reason we just didn't pick them, and some of the choices were random, some of them were based on what I can talk about, and some of the mistakes in your images, guys, were reoccurring. So I hope that you're going to be able to take advantage of all of those notes. Again, beautiful images. So I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all of your renders, and that you gave us this amazing opportunity to have a bit of a conversation with you. And my sincere thanks is for subscribing to us, because obviously, guys, if you have not subscribed, you can do it now. So I'm going to be talking to you. But what I'm trying to say is that well, we reached 100,000 subscribers, and that wasn't because I was creating new accounts each month. This is all you, so thank you for that, guys, for sticking up, for showing into our webinars and actually having a bit of a conversation. Again, this is really cool. This is nice. Okay, I'm really overwhelmed with all of those beautiful images. This one is really something. I love it. It's very photographic. Okay, and now we've got this one again, beautiful, very complex shot that was absolutely a shame not to talk about it for a little bit longer, but now we're going to go back to our chat to just reply to everybody, and that's going to be the end. So if you haven't yet liked our video, please do so, and we're going to be talking about the contest for our next webinar, so buckle up. This is a fantastic course, thank you very much. This wasn't even a course, this was just a little bit of a review, so if you would like to join our training, go to VizAcademy Co. UK and sign up for our July course. Is it July or June? July. No, we're going to be starting with July. Yes. So let's talk about the chat a little bit more. So I have a problem with setting the floor in interiors, either using the floor generator or modeling manually when dividing the parquet into two parts, right and left. So what is the issue? The right comes out mega clear, the edges are clear, the texture, and the left part emerges into one. You can't see the individual boards. Is this a problem with the setting the material? No, it's possibly the realistic I would like to see more of what you're talking about, so you can email me your question, but I'm pretty sure that that's natural. So whenever we have a herringbone pattern, so herringbone pattern interior, you're going to see that on plenty of photos, herringbone, I cannot spell, on plenty of photos and actual photos, you're going to notice that The floor is always going to have this brighter and darker theme, darker, brighter. That's because of how the light is being reflected by the bumps and refractions, roughness. So it's always going to come down to just that. And also remember that at some angle, it's going to be easier to look at those lines, and at this angle, it's harder to see them because, well, it's just a different angle. So this might not be that big of an issue as you made it out to be. Just look at some references, and if it's really too far from the reference, make sure to add the distances at fairly similar make sure that the distances are similar, so it's not going to be too big of a problem for you. How to create realistic paint texture on a wall? Well, find a realistic texture of a paint on a wall. But obviously it's also good to add a little bit of roughness texture, but we're going to be talking about materials soon. I need to learn V-Ray. No, you need to learn how to use Corona. Thank you. Studied a lot. Thanks for that. Thank you for what you do. You're helping a lot. Thank you for that. I am Ankit Bongare. Thank you, Mike, highlighting my render. You're welcome, and I'm really glad that you sent it to us. So thank you for that. I'd sent a week ago my renders. In that case, it's probably here, because if you did send it to me, it was somewhere out there. So rapid cuts, if it didn't get into the episode, I apologize. We just didn't have a chance to review everything. So Jonah, Arc Live, thank you. Mustafa, thank you. How can I win a free access to your classes? Gifford, there was a contest from CG Architect that you probably missed. We were talking about it. So 3D Awards Architect. So this guy, Mike, we were sponsors for the contest, and if you sent your work, you had a chance to win a lot of awards actually, and one of the awards for the winners was actually participation in our training. So make sure to sign up to the website and be on the lookout for all of the contests that are posted there, because the CG Awards and CG Architect in general are their amazing hub. By the way, check out their YouTube channel. They post a lot of very cool and very useful tutorials. A little bit different format than we do, because we like longer webinars, but they like to just get straight into the point. So that's actually a very cool idea. Thanks a lot for your time. How can I win? Okay, will this be on YouTube? It is on YouTube, and it will remain here. So yes, leave a like, guys, please do, and let's spam that. Now, okay, that's stupid. Leave a like, guys. Thanks. Which one is better, from V-Ray and Corona? It all depends on the artist. I prefer Corona because it's easier and faster to use. And remember, guys, to leave a comment after our webinar is over, so we can actually get into the algorithm and swim in it, so we can reach more people, and that way we're going to go to 1 million at some point. Once again, thank you very much for your amazing attention, for all of those beautiful images that were sent in. I'm really amazed with the quality, and again, I hope that you learned something. See you again in a week. We're going to be talking about materials and how to add damaged surfaces to your renders. This is one thing that your images might have been missing. So once again, thanks, and see you next time. Bye bye.